Welcome to Native Notion, a gaming podcast that isn't afraid to talk anything and everything. Here's your host, Klammath.
Yo, what's good? What's really good? Appreciate you guys showing up today. Apologize for not having a podcast out recently, but there's been a legitimate reason for that. We will be getting into that point today, possibly over the next couple of episodes. Just taking a look at it, I believe the way that we're going to be doing this, I'm going to be covering different segments of some things that I did just experience, some places I went, and kind of going into detail into my thoughts. For reference, today is the 13th of March, and yesterday I flew back home after going on a 10-day trip to the United Kingdom. Some backstory behind this point. Months and months ago, I decided that, hey, I wanted to go to the UK. I had a specific reason that was in my mind as to what I wanted to do. And I've been looking at when to achieve that, what worked out best for what it is that I was trying to achieve, what it is that I was going to do while I was there. And logistically, I worked out some things to make it work really well for me. To that point, getting into why it is I wanted to go to the UK in the first place. Well, number one, if you hadn't realized by now, if you're not aware, I was in the military. I was stationed on the West Coast of the United States. I did travel while I was in the military, but in my time, I never went to Europe. I've had a desire to travel the world, and even speaking to my mom recently, who came up and visited me, that desire has been blossoming since I was a kid. My mom recalled this point where we were having a discussion. This was after I was already grown up. I meant like I was out of high school at that point. There was nothing that was really preventing me from doing these things outside of being able to financially support myself during that process. And but she recalled this conversation that we had where I told her the whole reason, and this was about the same time, if not before or after I initially signed up, that I joined, or I agreed to join the military. So I did a thing called the Delayed Entry Program in the military. I don't know if this exists for other branches. It does for the Navy, excuse me. And I signed up to join, and I agreed to leave to go off to boot camp and officially join the military 10 months later. What that does is it gives you an opportunity to do the initial qualification book, as they call it. To be honest, it's called like a DEP entry book, I believe it is. What it does, everybody that joins into the military joins in as an E1 unless you join in as an officer. But at the end of boot camp, you officially get your you get the rank that you actually are. So that means like it's everybody's the same rank. There's no structure behind it that gives anybody any positional authority or rank authority that's associated with it. So if you did this booklet, you could, if you finished everything and all the requirements that are in it, you could go from an E1 to an E3 at the end of boot camp. So I did it, unbeknownst or beknownst to me, whatever. Anyway. I was going to be an E3 regardless when I got out of boot camp because of the job that I chose. But I did it anyway. So that said, I had this desire, like, hey, I'm going to join the military. I want to go see the world. That's part of what I did. Unfortunately, the locations that I went, I didn't get to see as much of the world as I would have liked. When I showed up to the USS John C. Stennis, it was in a shipyard period, so that's a dry dock period that I went into. And then the way it works on a carrier is you have to perform certain things in order to get qualified to go on deployment. For us, it took a year's worth of time in order to achieve that. So that's like from when you get out of dry dock until the day that you leave. It took a year for that to happen. And then we went on deployment. And deployment was 8.5 months long. I went to, we left, I was stationed in Washington. We left Washington, went directly to San Diego. We picked up our air wing. We did some work outside of San Diego. We did some work outside of Pearl Harbor. And then we booked it 56 days straight into the Middle East. I went to Dubai, the United Arab Emirates. Abu Dhabi is the port 5 times. Then we left that area that was in support of the things that the U.S. was doing in the region. We left that area and we went to Singapore. Then from Singapore, we went to Hong Kong. From Hong Kong, we went to back to Pearl Harbor, which is fairly traditional from coming back from deployment, from Pearl Harbor to San Diego back to Washington. So I didn't get to see as much of the world as I wanted to see. That's the whole backstory behind that. And I always made it a goal to keep going to places. That's what I want to go experience the world. I want to experience the different things that come along with it. From there, I moved from Washington to New York State. I was in New York State for 4 years at that point. And then I moved from New York State to Arizona. Lived in Arizona for 3 years. Then I moved back to Washington State. So I've done a fair bit of traveling around the U.S. I have been to basically every state that you can go to at this point. Which is, in the U.S. you're not restricted in going to any of them, but I've not been to Guam. Anyway. But yeah, so I've done quite a bit of traveling, but my goal is to do traveling around the world. So I've been to Canada. I have been to Mexico. I've been to Costa Rica. And then obviously the locations that I mentioned when I was in the military. So I have a desire to go to these other places and experience these different cultures and things like that. After I joined, or near the end of my time in the military, I got really into footy, soccer, football. It doesn't matter, footy. And since then, I have become a significant fan for my local team, which is the Sounders, and then also for Tottenham Hotspur. So with that, I wanted to go after I moved back to Washington. Well, when I was in Arizona, I knew some people that would go over and go visit and travel and go watch games and stuff like that, and I wanted to do it, and I never did. Then I moved back up to Washington, and I have friends that have done it here, and I finally got to a point where I felt comfortable in being able to do that, and that was this year. I would have done it earlier, but the 2 years of pandemic. So with that being said, that's my goal was to, hey, I'm going to travel to the United Kingdom. I'm going to go watch Spurs play, Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham, it depends. I call them all of them. I'm going to go watch them play and experience as much as I can. So the goal for me was to show up and see as much as I could during that time frame. I originally set it up so that way I arrived on Friday the 3rd. They had an away match to Wolves on the 4th. And then they had a Champions League game on the 8th and a league game against Nottingham Forest on the 11th. So that I was looking at other dates that I would have had less opportunity to see them, and actually would have been harder per se, just based off of the opponents to get tickets. Anyway, I experienced quite a bit in that process. I didn't know what the ticketing was like. I do have a membership, a One Hotspur membership for Spurs, so I have the ability to purchase tickets when they become available to me. That said, there are season ticket holders galore, and it's really difficult to get the ticket initially. There's resale on these tickets that you can do through their ticket exchange. But when I'm searching for this is back in like December, early January timeframe. There's no tickets to any of these games. As it turns out, I find out you can't go on the ticket exchange and get a ticket for Champions League match, which was news to me. Fortunately, I know some people that are familiar with the whole ticketing process, and that made it it helps me, the clarity that goes into doing this. So I end up getting a hospitality ticket to go and watch the Champions League match against AC Milan. Pretty expensive, not gonna lie, but given the nature of it, and being my first time going over there, I was okay with doing that. And it's like the only place I could get a ticket that I knew of. Other people know other ways that's not available to me. But I start looking for tickets for the other matches, the two league matches against Wolves and against Forest on Saturday and Saturday. And I run into what at the time I didn't know, which was essentially just people that are trying to scam people. I mean, I'm not blind to that point. There are some things that were done that were very obvious to me. There were some other things that weren't. So I engaged on Twitter at the time. Speaking of which, I've apparently been shadow banned on Twitter. I don't know what I did. But the last time I put up a post, it was a video and it got no views, no interactions whatsoever. I have 400 and something followers. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, so I'm engaging on Twitter, and I go through and I start DMing this guy. Mind you, nobody that's interacting with me at this point is telling me, to be careful. Nobody I know at this point is telling me that I need to be careful or anything of that nature. But I'm going through this process and talking. It's probably, I don't know, a few days worth of conversations back and forth. I have to be able to add this person to my network for Spurs in order for them to transfer me a ticket. So I do that. He requests that I send him 50 British pounds for this ticket, which I did. Ultimately, not a huge price or anything of that nature. And considering I was looking for a ticket at that point, yeah, it was worth it for me. And the day after I sent him the money, I got blocked on Twitter. And that's when immediately I knew. I had other people I was talking to, in fact, one of which I was pretty positive was a second account for that same person, trying to pull the same thing, but for a different game on me. And, yeah, it was, the experience was worth it, in my opinion. And it's actually given me a lot of experience to be able to tell people about that, so that way they don't make the same mistakes that I did. Fortunately, PayPal, I had screenshots of all the conversations I had and the money that was sent and how I didn't receive the ticket from them. And I sent it off to PayPal, and PayPal honored what it is I provided them and refunded me my money, taking it away from them. So, if anything, all I lost was time and maybe a little humility associated with that. Long story short, generally speaking, you got to be very careful where you go. Third-party sites like StubHub or Ticketmaster, those are going to be places that are people are selling, but selling fake tickets. Be very careful. The safest way is going to be through the ticket exchange that's associated with each of the clubs. They all have their own ticket exchange that's associated with it. As long as you're a member, you should be able to access that. The second safest way is to go through an authorized third party that has good reviews. I went for the Champions League game. I went through a company called Groundhopper, who is well known throughout all of Europe, and they're expanding in the US now. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're expanding in other portions of the world, where they are basically like a corporate entity that purchases blocks of tickets. And that process was fantastic for me. I had a friend of mine here who used them, and he's the one that recommended me to them. So that's certainly a way to do that. The other way you can do it is if you know somebody. For one of the tickets for the Forest match, I ended up connecting through one of my older friends, one of Spurs friends, and he offered me a ticket in the South Stand. This was in like right after Christmas. So in February, like mid-February, and I hadn't heard anything, like literally nothing from this person. He wasn't responding to me. I went off and bought a ticket for the Forest match, and the next day after I purchased the ticket, he asked me if I was still interested in buying his ticket. The unfortunate nature of that is because I bought that ticket via the ticket exchange, I could not refund that, and I could not sell it again. There's a reason behind that. They don't want people buying tickets on, especially on like the cheap, and then turn around and have that, sell it for more, try to make money off of reselling kind of situation. UK is really cracking down on that. So it's an unfortunate situation. I felt bad because I said I would work with this guy, and then 2 months of not having that, it is what it is. But then I started focusing on trying to get the Wolves match. The Wolves match away. I did a lot of research on this, and it turns out that getting an away ticket for a team is actually like pretty incredibly hard. Here's what ends up happening. There's a lot of fans that at the beginning of the season, when they become available for away matches, they put in for getting the ticket, and they get the ticket, and then they get awarded the ticket. They purchase it from the club, and they turn around and sell it individually to other people at a significant cost. They have no intention of ever going to these games. Basically, you have to build loyalty points to the club to be able to come to an away match for them. So the more matches you go to, the more loyalty points that you have, therefore the more eligibility you have for going to away matches. I obviously do not have that. Okay? That is a very clear point. I do not have that, and I will never have that. Not for them, at least. So anyway, I'm doing research on this all over. The more research I find, the more I start to realize that fans locally are really pissed for a couple of reasons. Number one, there are these people that are in line that are ahead of them who have priority to away matches that are securing these away matches. It's an unfortunate situation where they just haven't been able to either go to as many matches or get as many tickets, or whatever it may be. That is one thing that really it irks them, is that hey, these people can get it, I can't. The second part to that exact point is these people that are doing that are also turning around and selling it for an exorbitant price to people that may or may not have that priority, the next in line to get it. So say the person with the most loyalty points gets there and they want to reserve away tickets for all these matches. They get that away ticket for all the matches that they want, as long as they pay for it. Then they're going to turn around and sell it to, say, maybe me, who's traveling from the US to go see this team, when there's somebody who's been going to matches for significantly longer than I have and has never been able to go to an away match. That really, 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 really pisses these fans off. I recognize that point. Another thing to that is the clubs are starting to recognize that teams or that fans are doing that. And so what's ended up happening is this calendar, no, actually it came out in October, so not the calendar year, but this season, Tottenham Hotspur ended up saying, hey, if we find that anybody is purchasing tickets just to turn around and sell them individually afterwards, we're going to revoke their membership. Not only that, what they said was, if anybody is caught having a ticket that was purchased from somebody else that is not them, mind you, you have to scan your ticket to go in. If they check your ID and the name doesn't match, or what the ticket says, and that's how they find out. That is going to be, after experiencing it, I don't know how they're going to manage that. But what they say is, like, anybody's caught with that, they're also going to revoke their membership. That's a big deal. I don't know how they're going to manage it overall, or what they're going to do in order to continue that, or to really enforce that. But that's huge. So after a bunch of research, not to mention the logistics behind me leaving on Thursday afternoon and then arriving Friday morning, because 8-hour time difference for me, and then adjusting my sleep to be able to get out to where Wolves play, it would have been a nightmare. I would have been exhausted. Mind you, I'm a shift worker, so dealing with the changing in sleep schedules and stuff like that, it's kind of normal, regular business for me. It wasn't too difficult, but I would have had to travel on Friday out to where Wolves play, and then get a room, a hotel or something for that day. And on top of that, I'd have to have some place that I could keep my stuff while I'm at the game, which logistically is a nightmare. And it just ended up being like all those things combined. I decided not to do it. What I didn't know, and this is different here in the US than it is in maybe it's just London, maybe it's the UK as a whole, that I'm not sure of. What I didn't know is matches after 3 p.m. are not authorized to be publicly broadcasted. And again, I'm not sure if that's in the UK or if that's specifically in London or whatever it may be. Yeah, I don't know what kind of trouble you can get if you do end up doing that, like a streaming service type of deal. But I went to a couple different places, a couple of pubs, and nobody had this match. So I ended up having to take the train back to the place where I was staying, and I could, using a VPN, I could stream the match on my tablet. Fortunately, I didn't end up spending all that money to go out and watch them, because they played like absolute ass. Ended up losing the match in that game, which carried over into further games from that point. So that is, that whole process was just, it was incredible to experience. I'm after having gone through it, and then known how I felt and how I was emotionally doing during that period, mentally doing that through that period as well. I'm glad I didn't travel in on Friday and then leave Friday night to take the train out to go do that. I wouldn't have been in the right state of mind. It was, yeah, I was clouded just initially, right? If you figure, I left here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I arrived there at 7 in the morning. It's a 9.5, 10-hour flight to get there. I slept for maybe 3 or 4 hours on that. It wasn't, I mean, I'm used to doing that kind of thing. I was able to function. I arrived at like 7 in the morning. I'm into London by like 9-10 time frame. And actually my Airbnb wasn't even ready at that point. Mostly the check-in time for my Airbnb was 2 p.m. and I'm there at 9 a.m., 10 a.m. time frame. Fortunately, the person that I was going through, the person's location that I was staying at, I worked out a deal where I could just show up and drop off my luggage and then go out in the town and come back later. Worked out really well. Fortunate for that. I'm glad that she was able to make that work for me. So that basically, another thing that I learned in there, I arrived at London Heathrow, and you go through customs and passport check kind of deal. when you get out, this is my first time ever doing this. I have no real guidance on how to do this. I was given information to use a different type of card while I was there. It's called Revolut. If you've never heard of it, it's a way to, it's really good for foreign travel. They allow you in their app to connect a bank account. You can connect your bank account to transfer money to your Revolut account. And then from your Revolut account, you can use that to exchange currency in 215 countries around the world. And it's expanding from there. Really good. And the fees to be able to do that are really, really low. Much better than what it would cost you if you had physical cash and you went to the currency exchange location at the place you're going. Like significantly better, which is, you know, kind of wild to think about. I mean, I ended up, let's see, if I transferred $100 US, I would get 85 British pounds back. Quid. That was just straight currency exchange plus a 1 quid fee to actually perform the exchange. So, you know, like 1% fee to be able to convert money, which is, like I was saying, significantly less. Anyway, so my Revolut card, when I go to, they have basically like a cashless, contactless entry points all throughout, and they have these little stations that you can tap on to be able to use them. I go to use my card and it denies it, and I'm like, that's odd. So I end up, as it turns out, there's a setting within the app that is location based, and I had that selected, and for some reason the app didn't recognize that I was in the UK, even though I was physically in the UK. It's weird, and where I tried to use it was in the UK. Anyway, so I end up purchasing a ticket from these guys that are standing there, because I don't know any better, to do the Heathrow Express, which takes you from London Heathrow directly into town. So I purchased that. It was 25 quid, and I was just on my way. I ended up figuring it out once like all this process with Revolut goes down, and they have a good support team, fortunately. So when I get to the location, you have to because you took that train, you have to scan at the next location to get out of the turnstiles to say that, hey, I traveled from here to there. And I went to go scan my ticket, and it wouldn't work. And I was like, I purchased this ticket. I don't know what the costs of anything are. I purchased this ticket, and now it's not working. I don't know what the deal. And there's a big line behind me. So I step out of the way, and I go and ask one of the train staff that's standing there, who he realizes that I am not from there, because obviously I'm approaching him. And I start talking to him. I'm like, hey, I purchased this ticket out at London Heathrow. When I went to go scan it, it wouldn't let me out. And he told me, and I quote, "You just need to scan your Orca card." And then I told him, well, I don't have an Orca card. Obviously, I'm not from the UK. And he said, oh, you can just scan your cashless, or contactless payment. I was like, okay, not a big deal. So I get back in line, tack my contactless payment, move on. Travel from there is pretty easy. Figuring out where you're supposed to tap and where you're not supposed to tap, that took me a little bit. I eventually figured it out. But I ended up getting charged more during my first day there, because I didn't know where these locations to tap out were. So they have it's called Travel for London. It's the service that provides all, or is like the company that oversees all the travel locations within London. If you don't have an Oyster card, or even like a temporary card of some sort, the fees to travel are unlimited. So that they could charge, whatever the cost is. There's no such thing as a cap or anything like that to travel from one location to the next location. The bonus to having an Orca card is they limit the cost that you get charged on a per day spectrum to 8 to 9 quid. So after I was already there, I was able to figure out how to get an Oyster card, even not being based out of the UK. It reads your SIM card on your phone, which was a US based SIM card. A lot of people end up getting UK based SIM cards in order to achieve this process. People that are traveling for university or for work or whatever, and they're going to be there for a significant amount of time, they'll do that kind of stuff. Generally not something you're going to do or want to do if you're just traveling for a few days kind of situation. But I ended up figuring out how to get an Oyster card. And then I connected my Revolut account to my Oyster account. So that way, whenever I used it, it was boom, boom, it was smooth. Anyway, back to that point, I tap that, I get in, and I figure out where I'm going. There's an app that I was told to download called City Mapper. It is similar to Google Maps, except it is particular to exactly London and the transport services within London. So for me, having no idea what I'm doing or where I'm at or anything of that nature, first time, it was next level good. I used it so much while I was there. And highly recommend City Mapper if you're ever going to go to London. It doesn't work in anywhere outside of London, so keep that in mind. Anyway, get out, do my thing, blah. Go off and do my daily business. I think after I dropped off my luggage, I went out and I got some lunch, and I had a couple of drinks, a couple of beers while I was there. Mind you, lots of beer, lots and lots and lots of beer. It's a culture thing. There's so much good beer in the UK. So much good beer in the UK. And what I saw, people tend to drink like similar things. I am different in that I like different types of beers. So like most people were getting lagers. A group I was hanging out with, they like cider, and they would get cider, generally light drinks. I'm more of an amber/red ale kind of drinker, so I got mostly darker drinks. They had one place had a porter. I didn't get the porter. I'm not a big porter kind of guy. Anyway, go through my day, have lunch, go visit out to in that day I did the tourist stuff on the first day that I'm there. I went to the Tower Bridge. I went to the London Bridge. I went to Parliament that day. I walked around the city. The Thames River runs right through London, and there's a river walk that you can do, and I did that. Anyway, enough to the point where I wanted to go back. I went back to where my Airbnb was at, and this point I could actually do the check-in, did a little freshening up, and then boom, went back out to have dinner. After I have dinner, and it's just a local spot that I'm going to. I'm getting, I asked for like the people I know that have experience in the town or currently live in the town, give me recommendations for places to go. I ended up going to a space that a restaurant that was, I don't know, 2-minute walk from where I was staying. Nowhere that they suggested. It's just I think it's a one-off kind of location. Had a couple drinks, had dinner. It was good. Yeah, good to go. Get back in. That's when I set up my Oyster account. I get my Oyster account set up, head off to bed. In the morning, I wake up and I get a notification from Revolut who said, your transport for London account has been charged 65 quid for travel yesterday. And I was like, what? Huh? I was like, what the fuck? I had no idea how much it would cost, and it did seem exorbitant and outrageous. So I reach out to the guy that I know that lives in London and ask him about that. And he was like, yeah, that doesn't seem right. Something's wrong here. And I tell him my situation. And then and then he goes, "Oh, well, you found your mistake." And I was talking to the other guy that I know, Boris, who he lives in Gibraltar. I told him about the story, and he was like, "You're an idiot," and I was like, "I know, but I didn't know what I was doing." Oh man. Oh, lesson learned: if you ever go there, get your contactless payment set up ahead of time. If you can, using a service like Revolut is really good, because if you're from the US or really any other country that doesn't use the British pound, and you go there and you use whatever your local currency is, you're going to get charged the fee for whatever the cost is of the exchange. So that'll be added on top of whatever the cost is that you're buying. Keep that in mind. So yeah, find a way to convert to the British pound and just use that contactless payment. I have my my wallet has the cards that I use inside of it, and I was able to use it that way. There's a physical card you can get if you want it. Still suggest having it in case the contactless isn't working. Keep that in mind. Anyway, yeah, that's like the first 24 hours that I am in London. I have paid way more than I should have, and I got somebody who was familiar with the process at the train station I was at coming from Heathrow, who basically was like, "Dumbass American, just go pay more for the same thing that you just did." He knew what he was doing. Kind of an intriguing way to be welcomed into the country. So that was, yeah, it was. I mean, listen, it's a learning experience, and I hope that my experience that I had with it is a good way for somebody else to learn from that experience. Hopefully you're having a laugh with me, because I'm having a laugh. I'm not upset about it. Just, I look back and I'm like, you could have done that so much better. You could have been so much better. Now back to that point, I have a schedule set up for my trip. So this is Friday going into Saturday. I just talked about Saturday. I deal with the trying to find a game, unable to find it. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Right? Anyway. I'm learning a lot while I'm doing that. And then Saturday night, I decided to, it wasn't like terribly early, 10 o'clock maybe, after I go out for dinner and have some drinks, walk back to where I'm staying. Got to get rest, because in the morning I'm actually leaving to go to Edinburgh, which is Scotland. And it's not like I have I think it's a 10 a.m. train that I'm taking. I did not fly. It's actually cheaper to fly than it is to take the train. The experience is different. It actually takes, a fifth of the time to fly from London to Edinburgh. But I decided I wanted to take the train because I want to see the countryside and see what it's all about. By the way, awesome. I'll discuss my experience in Edinburgh probably in the next episode. That's what I'll do that. Then spend 48 hours in Edinburgh, take the train back, and then it's preparing to do all the things that I showed up to London to do. I'm coming back on Tuesday. There's a match on Wednesday. It's Champions League night, and that experience is all in its own. I know that because I'm in hospitality, I have the ability to show up to the stadium and get inside 3 hours beforehand. I ended up meeting up with a group of US-based Spurs fans with one guy, shout out to Shuban, who basically acted as the tour guide, showed us different locations, told us about, the customs, the ins and outs, the history, all of this stuff. Incredible guy to meet. and I connected to him through that longtime friend that I have from Arizona Spurs. Anyway, met this group of people that we hung out with, and yeah, I mean, took a lot of. It was an experience getting there. There was something you can do. You take the train to Seven Sisters train station and you walk the mile and a half that it is, mile-ish that it is to up to where Spurs play at. I'm told, based off of some reading on Reddit, that's an experience that you should do one time, and then only if you want to after that. So that's what I'm planning on doing. I get talked out of it. Anyway, I take the train up there, which stops basically right around the corner from it, and go and do my thing. Get Chick King, for those who may be familiar. It's just a fried chicken location. Real simple, quite inexpensive, directly across the street from the stadium. I show up there, have a chicken sandwich, have a water, and then, I'm good to go for a couple of hours at the very least. Cool process as it was there. Go and get to experience what it's like to be around the stadium for the match day, especially Champions League nights. I've heard stories about what it's like to be there, and grab some pictures of it. The stadium gets lit up. They have panels that go around the mirrors, or the glass that's on. I said mirrors. Excuse me. The glass that's on the outside of the stadium, and they have lights inside of those panels. I don't know if it's all of them, but certainly at least it's strategically placed. So I took some pictures and put them up on social media if anybody wants to go see them. Then I've been putting up on Instagram. Like I was saying, I've been shadow banned on Twitter, so I haven't put anything on Twitter. I think the last time I posted anything on Twitter was back in February, some period. Anyway, basically like exclusively posting on Instagram, mostly because I know people are going to be able to see it. And that's the only reason I'm sharing these pictures, so other people can see what I'm seeing. Otherwise, I have a picture in my head. And then go to the match, and it's against AC Milan. It's the second leg of the clash that we're having there, home and home. And it is arguably the worst match I have seen this team ever play. I've been a fan since 2011. After that, like right as the whole Bale and Modric sells happen kind of situation. So I started being a fan when like Emmanuel Adebayor was the starting striker. Roberto Soldado, like that. It was some Nasser Shadley, some lean years in there. Not to say that they were awful players. Obviously, they're professional players, right? But I started becoming a fan at that point, and it is arguably this game that I watched at the stadium that I paid all this money to watch is arguably the worst match that I've ever seen them play. It was horrible, and you could see it in the stadium. My ticket ended up being like right above where the away section was at. So I got to listen to the away fans for the 90 plus minutes that I was there. And you could hardly hear the rest of the stadium. There was like no attack at all. There was one real opportunity, I think. Kane's header that got saved. I think that's really it. That for a team that is down a goal at this point, they're playing like they don't have to score, that they're going to go through if it's a draw, which is so incredibly odd. That doesn't make any sense to me why a team would play like that. And it wasn't until like Cody Romero gets a second yellow and a red card in the 73rd minute, I think it was. I can't even remember the exact minute, but somewhere in the second half. And it wasn't until after that happened that they looked like they were trying to do something. The manager for Spurs is Antonio Conte. He makes a substitution at shortly after the red card comes out, and he subs in a center back when you need a goal. And there was some speculation that came out because of this, whether or not Kane, who was the captain of the squad, walks over to ask the manager, like, what are we going to do here? And then there's somebody had put out that they were sitting just behind where the players' benches are at, and they could hear the conversation that was happening. They said they heard Kane say, what are we going to do? Why would we bring in the defender when we need to score a goal? The reaction that you're seeing in the video, because you can't hear anything in the video, the reaction you're seeing in the video is Kane walks over, grabs a water bottle. You can see that he's saying something, but there's no real expression that's associated with it. Antonio Conte is being he's expressing himself. He's visibly expressing himself about something. He doesn't look like he's talking to Kane. And in the background, you see Ryan Mason kind of just like put his hands up and kind of look confused. So it caused a lot of speculation about what happened. It is like the worst game, not kidding you, the worst game I've ever seen this team play in 11, 12 years of being a fan. And at the end of the match, it was a goalless draw. And AC Milan went through because of it. At the end of the match, the fans ended up booing the team off the field. Right? That is, if there's one thing that is true, one thing that is common about how fandom works, especially around the rest of the world, not just in the US, or really not in the US, but around the world, they audibly express themselves when the team is not doing what it is that they expect them to do. There's been long-standing history for ENIC being in charge, and that's part of the reason, and how this team hasn't won a trophy since 2008, and the ambitions of the club, the ambitions of the players, the performance that the players put on there, the ambitions and the performance of the manager and management on top of that. Yeah, it's really, at this point, it's kind of a toxic relationship. Understandably, the fans are not happy with the performance that's put through. I wasn't happy. That just wild, just absolutely wild. So, anyway, leave the match, go across the street. There is a small pub that's right there, the Beavertown, and go inside. I get in like fairly early after the match, and I actually I was supposed to meet the group that I met up with before. That was a bunch of US based Spurs fans that were traveling. They were outside and couldn't get in. I ended up meeting my friend Boris, who got in right before them, and I guess he was the last person that they allowed into the pub. They were at capacity. Because of that, Boris and I sat in there and we had a drink, had some conversations, and then we left there. We went to the number 8, which is right next door. This was later, and had a couple drinks afterwards, talked about the match and the experience. Really, this is the first time I'm really getting a chance to talk in person to him. So we're really getting to feel out each other's fandom and everything like that. And then off we go. He actually told me about an app called Free Now, which is kind of it contracts into Uber. It's people. I don't know if it's US based at all. It certainly is useful in London, but it wouldn't let me use it. He was able to use it. And he caught an Uber out. Now he was 20 minutes away or something of that nature, so he ended up catching one. He turns around to me, and I won't forget this. I told him about it. He goes, "Hey, hopefully you get one. Good luck to you." It takes off. I spent an hour, before I got an Uber. Everybody was denying it. Literally everybody. My trip is kind of far. I was on the southeast side of London, so I'm not surprised that people didn't want to travel that far, especially considering I was in North London at the time. I walked down to the bus station. The buses run 24 hours in London, which is good. The trains do not. A lot of them shut down. By this time, it's a little after midnight. And I'm looking at 162 minutes to get back to the location I am, and it's 1 a.m. I'm like, and then while I'm waiting at the bus stop, somebody stops or somebody accepts my Uber request and comes and picks me up. Thank God. It still took me 45 minutes to get back. But my buzz kind of fell off at that point, and it was raining, obviously. Fortunately, there was cover inside the bus station, but yeah. So then from there, this is then, I obviously I get back to where I'm staying the night. From there, I had planned on going, well, tentatively, planned on going to Paris. So the way that it works out is you can go to like certain train stations, and from there, you can take them out to different locations. There is a train that connects directly from London to Paris. I'm going to do that. And so I start searching for tickets, and it was like $400 to go one way into Paris. And I was like, whoa. And then I looked at flights, and flights were like $1,500. This is US dollars, not British pounds, to fly into Paris from London. And I'm like, well, okay, well, I'm not going. That is way more than I'm willing to spend to be able to travel to Paris. I will do it a different time. As it turns out, in talking with Boris, it made sense afterwards. France is in a transportation strike. So for him, flying from Gibraltar, his flight got rerouted around France. You can't use the airspace over France when they are on strike. On top of that, the train service, like who's going to be serving you at this new location, right? It's kind of it's wild, you know. I mean, I know there were strikes happening in London because they were looking for better benefits and looking for better pay from workers. They announced when they were going to strike. Fortunately, it's coming up this week. Fortunately, it did not affect me, because I don't know what I would have done if that was happening when I was in, because I don't know what I'm doing. So anyway, I ended up not doing it. Instead, I took that time and I went and saw basically everything that I didn't go see beforehand. Piccadilly Square. I ended up going out to a market called Spitalfields Market, which was awesome. Big shout out to Boris on that recommendation. Spitalfields Market is legit. It's like an original market where they have stores that are built into buildings and stuff like that, but they've turned it into this like big deal that's completely covered, or almost completely covered, area where they have vendors that come in. They set up temporary locations for these people. I think they're like the permanent temporary locations, and different food that's over there, from like literally all over the world. Different foods, different types of vendors for goods, clothing, whatever it is you're looking for. This place was sick. I ended up getting some Indian food. I got naan, and it was a chicken wrap with a curry sauce and a naan tortilla, essentially. And then I got some spicy and cheesy fries, and it was legit. It was so good. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to go there, Spitalfields Market, 100% recommend. You can go there for lunch or dinner. I went for like lunch period, but it is cool. Went to a pub that was there, had a couple beers as well. What else did I go see? I went and did some museums. I went off and I went to the Maritime Museum as well. And that's in Greenwich. Then also went and found the Prime Meridian Point. There's a sign that lists the Prime Meridian Point. Then I went and had a beer at a pub that was down the road from there, but on the line. That was cool. See, and going into the Maritime Museum, I got to see a lot of art. I got to see a Rembrandt, but a lot of art from basically like 1500-ish up to like 1800-ish, around that time period. Which for me, being a U.S. citizen, our history doesn't really, there's not really a lot of documented history prior to the Revolutionary War. And for those who don't know, that's in the 1700s. So basically anything beforehand is what you know from other things. Obviously, we realize that the rest of the world is older. We know that there's history documented there. The Chinese have, 5,000 plus worth of documented years of history. There's Eastern Africa, which most people at this point kind of have accepted that they believe that's where mankind began. The cradle of life, right? That's what they call that. There's all the history of the Crusades. There's the history of all of the different wars that happened. Heck, there was big wars that happened within the UK, battling for the crown to take over the country. Originally, it was 5 or 7. Excuse me, I don't know the exact number countries that were split up to where the UK is now. They weren't all considered to be Great Britain or the United Kingdom. They came together, and that's where you get kings from different locations, kings and queens from different locations. Anyway, I mean, just such an awesome experience. There's paintings from artists that were close to the kings of those times. There's paintings from people that did all kinds of war type of paintings. People, like tracking, instead of taking pictures or having articles that were associated with this, they drew like handwritten drawings with pen and pencil, and then painted it as well to turn it into color. Really, really, really cool to see. I did a lot of that, and this was all of this was done on my own time, and I wasn't trying to coordinate times with anybody or anything like that. Yeah, just awesome to see that kind of stuff. Highly recommended if you're into any kind of history or if you're into art. I am not the biggest art buff, so seeing these kinds of things didn't quite strike the same chord as it would with other people. But just having the ability to go and see it, there's a true appreciation for what it is that they provided. A lot of oil-based paintings on canvas. You figure, some of these are made in 1500, and here we are in 2023, 500 years later, and they look incredible. They've done some conservation efforts to improve the quality of some of this stuff. But nevertheless, just incredible to see that kind of stuff. But then from there, so this is my days off. I went and basically did more tourist stuff during that time period. From there, I went to the Forest match on Saturday the 11th, and I end up meeting up with the guy I know that lives in London, Shuban, and he took me over to a pub that is basically right up the road from where Seven Sisters train station is. The history for this is that this pub location used to be the public toilet. So I was just intrigued. I'm like, no way, there's no way that's the case. They put a pub in this location where there used to be. That can't be the case. No, it turns out, in fact, really, really, really true. So, yeah. So anyway, I went and asked him. I'm like, I just want to see it. And that's exactly what we ended up doing. We ended up seeing it. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. I'm right here. Where is it? He took me to that point. What? It doesn't even show up. Doesn't make any sense. Oh, High Cross. That's what it is. High Cross. Anyway, it's just like a building in a they have outdoor seating. There's still public toilets there, and in the middle they put in a pub. So this is really interesting. And then we caught a bus at that point and took it up towards the stadium. And he talked to me all about the history around the area. He talked to me about the riots that happened, the last one being in 2011, but then the history behind them and what his experience was, because he grew up in the area, what it was like to be a part of that and the effect of that and all that different stuff. Anyway, it was really, really intriguing to see all of that. But ended up meeting, well, we're supposed to meet the group that the other US based Spurs fans that were there. They made a connection and were able to go into the stadium and see some things that I probably will never get to see, so good for them. But that meant that we were alone. So he's like, hey, I'm going to go take you to go get a pie and mash, a traditional pie and mash. I'm like, let's do it. I'm down. I'll try basically whatever. We walk over to, it's a spot called Tottenham Pie and Mash, which is directly across the street from the stadium. And it's closed, which he said he has never seen them closed before. So it's an interesting thing to have happen. Anyway, I end up meeting up. Boris brings over a friend. He meets with us right outside the stadium. And then Shuban's heading off to go do his own thing because we're going over to a pub called LT's. I go into LT's with Boris and his friend, and we meet the guy that Boris roomed with when he was at university in London. This is a location where these are like true down to heart Spurs fans inside this location, and they don't they're not the most welcoming of everybody, which is, I mean, I get it as if you would understand conceptually what it is. I end up spending I think it was like 2.5 hours in there. We just stand and had some drinks, got to talking about all kinds of things. Turns out Boris's friend, the one that he brought with him when he met us outside, really cool guy. He's going to university in the area. Good attitude, good to talk to. The guy we met, also really incredible person. He asked me a bunch of questions about me and where I was from and stuff like that. He talked some shit to me. But we just had a really, really good time. I'm really glad to have experienced it. And got an opportunity to see a side of the fandom that I may not have been able to see otherwise. So that was really, really awesome to experience. Then from there, I headed back into the match. I got some food, and then I go and watch Spurs play against Forest. And a stark difference from how they played on Wednesday to how they played on Saturday. They ended up winning 3-1. I think we could argue that it could have been 4. And the handball that was called there was a handball that was called a penalty, which was real rough to give him. I get it, but it's real rough. End up being saved and cleared out. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, fantastic match. After I got done, I met up with the US based Spurs fans and Shuban, and he took us to go get food. Went to a couple different places trying to, but ended up not working out. Then he took us over to Annie's, and Annie's was cool. Had a couple drinks. The only negative is they're short on staff, so the staff that were there, they went to go pick up all the empties that were out on the tables and stuff like that, and they end up dropping cups and spilling leftover beer onto people in our group. Yeah, it was an unfortunate scenario. Credit to the guys that were in the group that it had happened to them. They kept their cool about it. Yeah, we we went from there, and he took us over to a pub. To be honest, I'm not sure why we stopped at this pub. The conversations that were had, I didn't get to hear everything. I am partially deaf in one of my ears, so it makes it really difficult for me to hear things, especially in a bar scene, a pub scene. But like shortly after that, after we arrived, we're sitting down and I hear him talking, and he says, and that's why we don't buy drinks at this pub. And I was like, well, why did we come here? I don't know. I'm so lost. I'm sure there was context that I was not given that was a part of this. So anyway, he took us over to get some food, some Indian food at a local spot that he knew. And fortunately for us, he was able to, he was speaking Bangladeshi with with the staff, and they knew him. He was able to order all the food for us, and it was fantastic. Let me tell you, fantastic. Yeah, just really, really, really good. So thank you special shout out to Shuban for introducing us to that experience. It was quite the experience. Yeah, that was my last night, and then I flew out the next day, and here I am today. Yesterday was an all travel day. I flew out at 1 p.m. I got to the airport probably like 10:30-ish time period. And then got back here in Washington at 4 o'clock. Yeah, it was a full travel day. But my experience there was it was quite amazing. For those that are interested, if you're interested in a Spurs related podcast, the US based group of fans that I was with, they do run their own podcast. It's called the Tottenham Depot or Tottenham Depot, depending on where you're from and what your pronunciation is. You can find them on all your favorite listening stations. Feel free, give them a listen. I know they record twice a week or something like that. Usually after games. It's all Tottenham related. They cover all Tottenham things. Okay, all of them, not just the men's senior team. They cover all of them. So it gives you an opportunity to listen in, and there's a group of 4 of them that all do it together, and I got to meet them. Really, really cool guys. Yeah. Outside of that, you can find all my socials they're going to be in the show links. I use Instagram quite a bit now. I do have a Twitter account. I did get to see a notification for me, but I don't know what's going on with my post, why I didn't get any. There's no traction associated with it. Anyway, you can find Twitch. I haven't streamed in a long time, but there's a lot that goes into that as to why that's the case. I hope to get back to it, but now is not the right time to be able to do it. There's a lot going on in my life. YouTube, if you want to use that, I'm on Discord, and that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And then for those of you that know me personally, I'm also on WhatsApp. Feel free to reach out to me on one of those. I'm going to be soliciting this, but if anybody has ideas that they want to hear about in the podcast, please let me know. Reach out. Or if you want to be a guest, I can come up with quite a few things that we can talk about, and we'll make that happen. Please feel free to reach out. Don't forget, subscribe, like, comment, rate, do all of that for my podcast, Native Notion. And you can find that on all of your favorite listening stations. So please feel free, let the word know, let all the people know what the word is about the podcast. Send it out, talk to them about it. Let them figure out whether or not they like it. Regardless of whether or not you like this, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to listen to it, and I will try to be a little more consistent with this. So, in any case, please feel free to share this with everyone that you know. That's the best way to grow, is to sharing it with all the people you know. With that said, I will catch you all the next time. Peace.
Thanks for listening to Native Notion. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, keep up with Klammath by following him on Twitch, Hover, and Twitter. All links are in the show notes. Until next time.